Sure we got everyone. All right, we got everyone? Excellent. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly Senate press conference. Today, I am joined by our Senate President Pro Tem, Malcolm Augustine, and all the members of our Senate Black Caucus, the largest Black caucus in the country of any state Senate. And what this means is that we have the most representative form of democracy here in Maryland than any other state in this country. And on this last day of Black History Month, we wanted to take a moment to celebrate the progress, while knowing we have a long way to go, the progress that we are experiencing here in Maryland, and in the face of and despite efforts to pull back on that progress at the federal level. Before I go too much further, I do want to just take a quick moment to say on behalf of the entire Senate how deeply, deeply sorry we are for the Speaker's loss of her beloved son, Brandon. She is a family person and keeps her family very private, but is a very, very loving mother and grandmother. And the entire Senate holds her and her entire family in our thoughts and prayers as she faces this difficult time. And we hope that she's being comforted by those who love her and the number that are caring for her in this deep time of need. So transitioning from that for some of the things quickly for the week, we have the BRFA today, the Budget Reconciliation Bill that'll be in the Budget and Tax Committee. We know that we appreciate the governor's efforts to make some hard choices to balance in the face of extreme federal uncertainty. And we know that we're going to have to be very flexible over these next 30 days as more information comes in. The second thing of note is our energy package will be moving forward today. This will be heard in the joint hearing room with the Senate Committee on Education, Energy, and the Environment, as well as the House Economic Matters Committee. This is a package of 3 bills focused on trying to lower energy costs by creating a long-term plan for our energy future. And lastly, I would be remiss if I did not speak towards what we've seen in Washington over this last week. We saw the passage of the House Republican-led budget resolution. What we know is that this is congressional Republicans demonstrating that they are united behind President Trump's intended cuts to Medicaid and Medicare programs in order to pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest of our society. Let's make no mistake that if this plan moves forward in the next few weeks or month, we know that this slash and burn approach to government administration will devastate Marylanders. So I want to change from that and shift and hand it over to my friend and colleague, our President Pro Tem, Malcolm Augustine.
Thank you. Thank you, Senate President Ferguson, for that. And I say good morning to you all. I will say that this Black History Month it started for me in a very challenging place, in that at the federal level, we've seen not just the election of President Trump, but also just this idea of DEI being taken apart. And the implication of that really is that Black Marylanders and Black people in general are somehow less than, and that they were gotten to the places that they got to, not based on their works, but based on other aspects of who they are. It's why I'm actually here, is because I just wanted a fair chance for all of the people who I represent and who we are. I'm uplifted, though, because I have my colleagues here who are demonstrations of the positive, the intellect, the capability of the people that we have, and they do just so a fantastic job of representing our fair state. And so we are here celebrating this Black History Month, and we're gathered today. And on yesterday, we had Senator McCray take us back historically, because Maryland has a long history of people in elected office, and Verda Welcome being in our Senate back in 1962 and drawing the line all the way forward to where, as President Ferguson mentioned, we have these 65 members of the Black Caucus across the board, 16 of which are in our Senate, who represent 1.8 million Black Marylanders. We represent that third of this state, and we are, in fact, greater than a third of the Senate. Very representative of our state, very proud of that accomplishment. And it started from a very small group. led with the efforts of Verta Welcome, and it has worked its way through trying to expand these opportunities for small business and righting the wrongs of decades of discriminatory laws. I find myself that to be a central part of our work. We look back at what was done previously, and we have a job to undo a lot of those things that have systemically made it difficult for African Americans to do the things that they want, just to live a full life. But today, we pause and we recognize progress, because there has been this progress. And we acknowledge the present issues that we have, but we are working towards a future Maryland that builds on our values and our principles. We are, as President Ferguson mentioned, we're facing strong headwinds from this new Trump administration, and they really bent our turning back this progress, the war on DEI, upending federal jobs, which Black Marylanders have competently filled in service to our country, and they deserve better than this from our federal government. They deserve better than this from our federal government. But now, like I said, we are here to share that we are in the fight. We're going to make things better, but it's important for us to know what's happened in the past. And so I'm going to turn it over to Senator Benson, who will share some reflections on Black history in Maryland and our legislature. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I grew up in Hagerstown, Maryland. And at that time, the racial composition of Black citizens was less than 5%. And I grew up in a community where we really were a family. And so we started out, for those of you who do not know, we started out with Black history being celebrated for 1 week. But when we began to look at the data, and the teachers began to look at the research, and the ministers and the community looked at the number of Black people who had contributed to this country, a group of folks came together and said, no, we must extend it to Black History Month. That was a very wise decision. And so in 1991, when I came here to Annapolis, I looked around, and there was so much that we felt needed to be done. So I sat down with just a handful of Black legislators, because there weren't many of us here in 1991, to decide how we could make it better for the citizens back in our communities. And each of us came with different concerns, as it is today. When I got here, we did not have a Black Caucus office. But we made a decision that we were going to move forward and get a Black Legislative Caucus office. What a wise decision. And we began to set the agenda to make it better for the citizens who were in Western Maryland, where there were no Black representatives, on the Eastern Shore, Southern Maryland. The concentration was in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. And as we look around, ladies and gentlemen, we look around today, and we look at what's going on Capitol Hill. And if there was ever a time that we need the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus, it is now. Because there are those of us who are here who are so concerned that there is an attempt to turn back the clock for Black Americans. We are looking at the news, we're reading the newspapers, we're looking at television, we're talking to different people around the country. And what is happening is, regardless of your income, regardless of your degree, there's an attempt to terminate your position. People of color are being fired left and right. We, as a caucus, are bound and determined to continue to move forward. And we are so blessed because we do have people who understand the need for us to create the kind of atmosphere here in this chamber, here in the House of Delegates, in the Senate. We've got to create the kind of atmosphere that speaks to the following: we're in this bag together. If we as Black people do not prosper, this country will not prosper. We are sinking sand. And so, as a member of the Maryland Legislative Black Caucus, we are bound, and the senators that are with me here today are bound and determined to move the agenda forward, working for the good of future generations. And we also understand that it is important for us to get our arms around the history of Black Americans, because the story really has not been told. Some of the most wonderful things that have happened in this country happened by people whose names we will never know. But we keep on moving the agenda forward. We are willing and able to do those things that are going to make it better for us as a people, regardless of race, creed, color, national origin, whatever. We are bound and determined to make it better for everyone in this country, in this county, in this state, in our communities, in our districts. I am very glad to be here this morning because it is my childhood that convinced me that if we work together, wonderful things happen. If you go back to in the 1960s and the 70s, we in Hagerstown lived together as a family. And it was progress. It was progress made because we understood each other's concern. We were not concerned about Democrats or Republicans. What we were concerned about was making progress and that every child who grew up in our community would be successful. And so we're very, very excited and delighted to be here this morning. And may you continue to understand our plight because we are very serious about the agenda.
Absolutely.
All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. Today is, and on this last day of Black History Month, we stand before you today as proud Marylanders and proud members of the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. We stand on the shoulders of so many named and unnamed individuals who fought for us to be here today in this Maryland General Assembly. One can evoke the names of so many Marylanders who took up the call to lift up our communities when forces unsuccessfully attempted to keep us down. I would like to believe that their life's work wasn't in vain. In recent history, our caucus recognized that the state had an obligation to properly remedy its unlawful treatment of our 4 HBCUs when we used the power of the legislating to settle a lawsuit on behalf of those HBCUs for $577 million. After time and time again of trying to address harms that we saw disproportionately affecting Maryland's Black community, our caucus used the power of legislating to repeal the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights. And after hearing about minority and women-owned businesses being left on the sidelines of this state's industries, we enacted legislation meant to address contractor accountability, the growth of those companies, program transparency, and program outreach efforts. But today we face a different kind of challenge. And while it is not as challenging as the challenge that our ancestors had to face in the 19th century, or even the early to mid 20th century, it is a challenge nonetheless. But the good news is that today, Marylanders have a Black caucus that makes up about 35% of the General Assembly's legislators. We have legislators who will work to ensure that our forefathers' life's works shall not be in vain. And just to take a point off of this, you're looking at a lot of history makers. Many of us don't talk about the first that you see around me, but you're looking at history right here. Back to the script. Even with the disregard of federal law and the work to undermine and erode the rights and the protections of those rights, today the Legislative Black Caucus stands at the ready to work on behalf of Marylanders. You see, we have a system of government that divides powers between the national government and state governments. That system is called federalism. So despite the minor setback we experienced last week when the Federal Secretary of Defense declared the so-called identity months dead, forcing our Maryland National Guard, as well as the Massachusetts National Guard and its 54th Massachusetts Voluntary Infantry Regiment to cancel its plans to participate in the celebration of Frederick Douglass, his birthday and the Civil Rights Day. And again, mind you, Frederick Douglass, his history of recruiting people to fight on behalf of this union and recruiting people to participate in the 54th Massachusetts Voluntary Infantry, our Secretary of Defense didn't find him fit to have our military to support this gentleman. So on this last day of Black History Month, you'll find us girding ourselves for a battle that we did not ask for, but one that we're unafraid to engage in to ensure that the rights of Marylanders are protected, where we see the national government abdicating its role. And we can do this because we know whatever powers are not enumerated or implied belong to us, the state of Maryland. Thank you.
My God, my God. Good morning. Good morning. First, thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem, and my colleagues that are here today for providing this opportunity as we celebrate and stand here in the final days of Black History Month. I'm Senator Antonio Hayes, and I'm proud to represent Maryland's 40th District in Baltimore City. I just want to thank my colleagues here, especially the Dean, Senator Benson, for her, eloquent words as always, and helping us to stay focused on what is ahead of us, and while we also embrace the past and those whose shoulders that we stand on. The future of my city and our state are dependent upon what we do here in Annapolis these next 90 days in session. And as my colleagues in the Legislative Black Caucus articulated, we're focused on the future and what that means in protecting funding for our HBCUs so our youth receive a world-class education. It means supporting MBEs so they're able to grow and thrive. And it means investing in what works. The chaos in DC is having real-world implications on our constituents. Every budget cut has an impact on our cities, big and small. Baltimore's success is Maryland's success, and the success of our cities, which are often the bastions of multiculturalism, are important to our country. As Vice Chair of the Senate Finance Committee, I'm committed to upward mobility for every Marylander, but especially those who have been left out of the equation. I know I speak for my Senate Democratic colleagues and the Black Caucus colleagues when I say we can't compromise when it comes to our future. We're prepared to fight for the policies that make our communities whole, and we're prepared to fight the administration if they seek to undermine the gains we've made for Black Marylanders to build wealth and gain opportunity. Through historic investments in public-private partnerships, we're making Maryland competitive. That's what we're focused on, not scapegoating real issues. President Musk and Vice President Trump and the congressional Republicans are attempting to dismantle our government for the benefit of the few. We're trying to strengthen government for the benefit of all. Thank you all so very much for being here.
I just want to conclude this segment by just saying how humbled and honored I am to stand shoulder to shoulder with these truly historic leaders. The Maryland Senate is an unbelievably special place because of the folks alongside me, and I just thank them, each and every one of them, for this work. We're going to take questions from members of the caucus. Some have some time constraints, so we'll pause before questions for other issues. So please.
Someone give us a status report on the Legislative Black Caucus agenda, and in particular, the reparations bill.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Arthur Ellis, Charles County District 28. I, serve on the executive board of the Legislative Black Caucus, and we talk about our progress, and we're making progress in quite a few areas. Maternal health bills passed Finance and passed the Senate this week. We continue our progress there. Other bills, I know Senator Hayes' bill went through, and the reparations bill, we had the hearing in the House, I think this week. That was yesterday, and the Senate yesterday also. Yeah, and so that's progressing, and we will turn to the committees to take appropriate action to move those bills forward.
And just as a follow-up, will you explain what that bill entails?
Well, it's a commission. Okay. Oh, you're, okay. Okay, you're the sponsor, okay. He's more knowledgeable than I am about that bill.
He was doing pretty good. I was like, that's keep at it, my brother. No, it's really a study. This is a study to determine what we should do, how we can do it, and what will reparations mean in terms of will it be monetary? Will it be apology? There are so many ways that we are trying to move this bill through. And I think with the composition of the bill, being a study, we're looking for them to come back with some concrete recommendations on how we can move forward. There are others such as California, New York, and in our own state, Greenbelt, that have looked at it seriously and have and implemented, in a sense, their understanding and what can rationally be done in terms of reparations. So that's where we are with it.
In regard, excuse me, and Senator Muse, you and I spoke about this bill yesterday. Right. In regard to the bill, I know that there have been several iterations that have been introduced in the past. I guess I'm interested, pardon me,
No, that's okay.
beyond the sponsor of the bill, if anyone could speak to why now is the appropriate time, especially given the fact that it's been introduced many times.
Thank you very much. Senator Mary Washington, I am a member of the Education, Energy, and the Environment Committee, and I also served on the work group, the Legislative Black Caucus work group, over this interim with my colleague, Senator Sidnor, to review. So this is not the first time. There have been multiple years in which a reparations concept or bill has been put forward. The bill that Senator Muse is the sponsor of is taking an approach that is slightly different than what other states have done. In establishing the commission, it's very specifically focused on the state and local laws and practices that are specifically related to from the periods of Reconstruction from 1865 through 1965, where specific rights and access to property, loans, or any privileges in law based on a condition of prior servitude or based on color. And so the commission itself is being established, but their first act, rather than trying to come up with a number and dividing it among individuals, is really taking a more systematic approach and just understanding across the state of Maryland for Marylanders where have the rights and privileges been denied, or where access to loans or any number of things, so that there's not a sort of general concept of just an enumeration or a payout, but really, how do we assess what has happened in the past, but also how do we as a state, how do we assess what is, what continues to practice, and how the forms of the reparations or the repair will be to the systems that contributed to the disparities or the denying, of access to wealth. So it is a slightly a different approach. So there may potentially be individual compensation, but that's probably not the initial goal. It really is how to approach it structurally through state investment or also private entities. So and they have about a year or so where they're going to look at that, and so we have people in finance and researchers and all over so that we can get the full scope and then develop a plan forward. But but it's not your typical sort of study and it goes up on a shelf. It's really collecting the data and information from those who know, so that we can have a plan forward in Maryland that not only restores but repairs, but also looks to the future.
And just a quick follow-up, is there any significance that the Black Caucus is kind of uniting behind this in this year, given everything that's happening at the federal level politically?
Well, I could just say that the work group was constituted prior to this. I mean, I kind of know what you're looking for, but I can't provide you with that quote. But this is really a part of the work that we have all done, that we continue to do, and finding out the best strategies for moving forward, and noticing that other states' programs have not been implemented because they've been caught up in court, and just that we feel like it's very important that you can point to specific laws and policies wherein the states or local governments or local ordinances participated in the unequal treatment that had a very specific result. And so that's where we're approaching it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna make sure I jump in here real quick. Thank you. You all probably have heard, and matter of fact, Senator Augustine kind of touched on it. There's a national movement going on with certain businesses taking away the initiatives. Target is one, I believe Lowe's, and to an extent Amazon. Anyone can answer, doesn't matter. Do you have a message for some of these businesses that are doing that, and also any message for Black consumers? That's kind of what I mean.
Well, there are certainly things that individual consumers can do. And I know you just have to look online, and people, in the past, people have bought where they were respected, and if they felt that their dollars if they weren't respected, then their dollars had to be placed elsewhere. I will tell you, and this has been a major concern of mine. I work for an organization, and these executive orders that have been being issued and the constant change of these executive orders is causing chaos. It's causing chaos for many of these companies and businesses. When they operate, they like to know kind of what the road is. He's destroying the road, and it's unacceptable. We're constantly looking for guidance, and I will tell you, just speaking as someone who went to law school, and you're raised to understand that there's a rule of law and everything is supposed to follow that rule of law. There are processes. He's destroying all of those norms, and while it makes it difficult, again, I think we're here to say we're that guardrail. We're going to protect Marylanders as best we can. We're looking for those solutions, and we're going to make certain that we're protected.
Yeah, and Mr. Ford, good question. Bring up a text from Reverend Hal Sharpton on DI boycott plan, 24-hour blackout on Friday, today, Friday the 28th, from 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. This is the first step to counter the attack on DEI. which is diversity, equity, inclusion. The directive is, in instructions and marching orders, do not make any purchases, do not shop online or in-store. No Amazon, no Walmart, no Best Buy, no McDonald's and other fast food stores. No gas, no major retailers. Do not use credit or debit cards for non-essential spending. Try to buy all you need before Friday, today, or after. So that is a nationwide movement and coordinated, and most of our phones receive those text messages.
Actually, I got one quick follow-up. Actually, Senator Ellis, was you.
Sure.
Actually, I literally heard it on radio this morning. It was talking about black maternal health. Don't you have a bill on that? And how's that going? Was it SB 94?
Yes, that's a maternal health bill, which my colleagues voted as a priority bill of the Black Caucus. So 80+% of adverse effects after childbirth on moms is due to high blood pressure. So this bill, the one you Senate Bill 94, will ensure that Maryland Medicaid work with providers to have women on Medicaid going through the postpartum period to receive blood pressure cups. And not just get the cups, but the bill covers monitoring and basically the use of these cups, which will help in the outcome. This bill came out of a workshop with the Senate President nominated me to go to in Virginia on black maternal health. And there we met researchers at Johns Hopkins who are working on this very issue. They have a clinic in Washington, D.C. And the statistics were startling, but the outcome was really impressive. So we took that back, brought up the bill, the Black Caucus, the priority bill, and happy to say that it passed the Senate unanimously this week, I believe, right, Mr. President? This week. And the House bill, the cross-file, last time I checked, it was on third reader.
Can you do one more, Katie?
Just real quick. I read a story yesterday about how the DOJ had asked the U.S. Attorney's Office to end the consent decree with Maryland State Police regarding the civil rights pattern and practice investigation into discrimination against Black trooper candidates and women trooper candidates. I'm wondering if anybody has anything to say about that, or whether there is going to be pressure from you all to the governor or Maryland State Police to continue with those reforms. Hot potato. Is that true, Bill?
I would just say that it's new, and I don't think that we are right now ready to really comment on that. Okay, thank you. All right, right?
I just want to thank all of the members. I know that there are some prior commitments. I just want to thank you all. Thank you for being here today. And
I wanted to make one remark too about reparation. I want you to know that if you think about the gentlemen, there were two gentlemen, well, probably 3 or 4, that were incarcerated. And they were there, they were incarcerated, and they did not commit the crime. They filed a lawsuit, and they won the lawsuit. They didn't call it reparation, but that's a form of reparation. So the reparation is not new. We just put a name to it. But we're saying we're not going back. That's the bottom line. We are not going to go back. For you, my wonderful friend, if we have businesses in Prince George's County, in the state of Maryland, that are attempting to turn back the clock for us, they won't last. That we can promise you. We have ways in which we can help them, and we are prepared to help.
Well said. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're going to go before.
Thank you.
What time is it? Yeah, let's do something quick after. Yeah.
We'll do that.